Good evening, TNR fans, and welcome live on the World Racing Network to tonight's broadcast of the TNR Grand National Series presented by Schue's Lawn Service. It is the penultimate race of the 2023 season. A lot to talk about in pre-race today for the Dunay Jewelers 200 here at Bristol Motor Speedway. Very glad to have Dunay Jewelers back on sponsoring another race this season. Tell you more about them as we go on. Me and my broadcast partner Will Radcliffe here tonight. Garrett Gleason decided he wanted to get back down on the track. I can't blame him. See what he can do here at the Last Great Coliseum. But for tonight, it is me and Will Radcliffe. And Will, I'm very glad to have you back up in the booth with me. You called the race at Daytona with me. That was an awfully good one, and I hope tonight at Bristol gonna be just about as good.
Yes, I'm hoping so too. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
It is my pleasure as always to welcome you into the booth with me. And again, when Garrett decides he wants to vacate his chair, you're the first person I call up. We are going to take a look at the point standings here with just a couple minutes left in the practice session here tonight. We'll pull up the tickers so you can see where your favorite driver is in practice times. But looking at the playoff standings after last week at Darlington, it's Philip Scott leading by 11 points over Bill Edwards. As not a very sizable lead, so Philip gonna be on the defensive here tonight at Bristol. Currently in practice, Philip Scott is third fastest and the fastest playoff driver. Bill Edwards is sixth fastest. And there is a poll out in the chat too. We're asking you who you think wins tonight. A playoff driver or a non-playoff driver. Let us know in the YouTube chat what you think. And we'll keep going through the points here. Johnny Eckert not here tonight in that number 90. That is big news for the four-time winner this season. And the winner of last week's race at Darlington. A crazy race at Darlington, I might add. He is not in the field tonight. Vincent Valvano, fourth in playoff points. A little bit further back. These drivers from fourth on back, they're going to need something to happen probably to Philip Scott and Bill Edwards here tonight if they want a chance next week at Las Vegas. Also, J.D. Laird drops to fifth in playoff points. The driver who has won the most races this season and came into the playoffs as the points leader. Things have not gone his way in the first half of the postseason, and he sits 49 points back. Followed by DJ Weeks, Jake Bustos, Jamar Dumas, and Bob Giaquinto. Those three tied for 7th place, and then right behind them, Mike Floppy Tellier. Also a driver, won the paint scheme contest last week in our 90s throwback, but things have not gone his way so far in the playoffs, results-wise. But Will, it's always when you get into the playoffs like we are, it's a curious dynamic between drivers who are there racing for a championship in the points, like J.D. Laird, who you see on screen, and all those drivers who aren't racing for the championship but still want to go out and have a great race. Because if you're one of the playoff guys, you want to win the race, but you also are mindful of the fact you're racing for a championship, and you're racing a little bit extra hard, but all these drivers not going for the championship, they still want to win, but they've got to be mindful. There are drivers out there racing for a lot more long-term pride here.
Yes, and especially as someone that is not a championship driver, when you get really hard up into the front of the pack and you want to take that dive, you got to think, wait a second, if this goes badly, probably will make somebody really angry with me. And so it definitely changes the dynamic, like you say, of when you can be aggressive and who you're aggressive towards.
Here's the winning paint scheme from last week. That's the 47 of Mike Tellier. Though, as you see, practice is over. We're going to shift over into qualifying. Fastest in practice was Chuck Sweeting, who 2 weeks in a row has won the Bridesmaid Challenge here. That, if you haven't been watching the World Racing Network over the last several weeks, the highest finishing non-playoff driver gets $5 courtesy of Jake Bustos, the bridesmaid bonus, and also an extra $5 for beating all the other playoff drivers to win the race. So far, Chuck Sweeting has gone 2 for 2 with those honors, including his win at Texas to start the playoffs. Here, though, qualifying at Bristol, things going to go very quickly. This is about a 15-second lap. We'll see where the lap times fall here in qualifying. So things going to go very quickly here to start off qualifying. Lap time's going to come in very quickly. Fastest as of right now, Bill Edwards in the Fatal Concepts number 5 machine. He again, a playoff driver, chasing Philip Scott. And Will, when you come into this race knowing you are just behind that driver for the championship lead, you've got to know Bill Edwards is feeling a little bit of pressure here tonight for sure.
Yes, and I think that my strategy, if I was in their position, would just be to hold it back, because you never know. It's a short track. You never know what crazy things might happen, and if you hold it back and just let the leaders crash themselves, you'll be in the spot right for the championship, right what you want.
And this is a track to do that as we ride along with Bronson Stafford here on his qualifying run. Bristol is a very short track. It's a half mile. It's billed as the world's fastest half mile track as well. This is a place where chaos can happen very quickly. You see how high speed this track appears to be. And Stafford gets a little bit out of sorts there into the corner. Let's take a look at Chuck Sweeting here. Winner of Texas. But as I was saying, things happen very quickly here, and it's not a big track. So when a couple drivers spin, all of a sudden, you don't have a lot of place to go other than maybe to pile into that wreck. So you're going to see tonight a little incident that at other tracks might just involve 1 or 2 cars. That's going to collect quite a few here tonight. Drivers have to be mindful and pay attention to their surroundings. Current fastest in qualifying, the Wild Child, John Cannizzaro, with a 15.260 over James Lorello and J.D. Laird in 3rd. Chuck Sweeting just went to 4th in qualifying, and Jamar Dumas rounds out your top 5. This is J.D. Laird in the JDR Graphics 46, and like I talked about, the playoffs really have not gone JD's way. He's going to look to turn that around here tonight, but got caught up in some incidents not of his doing in the opening playoff races at Texas and Darlington, and he sits pretty far back behind your leader Philip Scott now. He's really going to have to cut into that tonight. And as of right now, he'll be the highest placing playoff driver, but J.D. Laird, another one, the pressure really on here tonight. He's the only driver out there qualifying right now. He's taken both his laps. I think he's doing a little restart practice right now, but that kind of takes us into a little bit of a lull here. Will we get ready to go racing? 10 drivers have taken qualifying time, and there are another 7 sitting in the pit lane. And this is one I always ask. Bristol, a tough track. What do you do? Do you take time, or do you want to start in the back and kind of let yourself have that first 45 lap stage to kind of settle in? Then you know you're going to get the yellow, and then go back racing again to the end.
That's a good question, and I think it depends on how comfortable you feel at this track. If you're one that short tracks aren't really your thing, and you kind of more for the bigger tracks like Daytona and Talladega, I would say stick in the back. Just let what happens happen. But if you know you have pace here and you know you can be strong, making that front pack and getting out of the way just might give you the win.
Yeah, it is also 200 laps here tonight. It's a very long one here, but those 200 laps at 15 seconds a lap will fly by pretty quickly here. We're about to transition over into gridding up for the race. We'll take you through your starting order here momentarily as soon as qualifying officially wraps up here at Bristol. Again, tonight, the Dunay Jewelers 200. Once we go green, I'll tell you a little bit more about tonight's race sponsor, Dunay Jewelers. Drivers getting set on the track to go racing, and I will take you through now your starting order here in tonight's race. And it begins with the 18 of John Cannizzaro out on the pole. The Wild Child starts on the front row beside James Lorello in the number 13. Lorello, a very good race car driver. Look for him to have a good run here in tonight's race. Starting in row number 2 is J.D. Laird in the 46 alongside Chuck Sweeting in the 75 machine. It's Jamar Dumas Rolling off from 5th beside Bill Edwards in the S2R Fatal Concepts machine. Philip Scott, the World Ninja League, rolls off from 7th with Bronson Stafford to his outside in 8th. Then it's Vincent Valvano in 9th, and rounding out your top 10, Jason Schue, the final driver to put in a qualifying time. Mike Floppy Tellier rolls off in 11th. Then your drivers who did not take time in tonight's race, DJ Weeks still rocking his throwback from last week. In the 12th position, Stephen Doziak Jr., who is providing us with an onboard camera. We'll get to that a little bit later on. He rolls off from the 13th position. Bob Giaquinto, the Tabletop Trio machine, starts 14th. Garrett Gleason, our own Garrett Gleason, who's usually up in the booth with me on track tonight, rolling off 15th. And then rounding out your field, Robert Tripp in the TNR machine starting in 16th, and Johnny Williams will roll off from 17th. You and I talked about it before we went green here, Will. Not a massive field here tonight, but at a short track like this, there's not a lot of room to go, and even with 17 cars, that leader's going to catch up to the leaders eventually.
That is true, and especially if you're not quite on the groove of everybody else, not following just behind, I think you're going to lose a lot of pace here. So if you do stay with the group, that's what your main goal is going to be, just staying behind, staying with everybody.
Looking at our poll out in the chat, we just closed that. 71% think that a playoff driver will win tonight. 28% think a non-playoff driver will win the Dunay Jewelers 200. The front row made up of 2 non-playoff drivers. And in those front 2 rows, actually, only J.D. Laird is in the playoffs. You'll notice playoff drivers, to remind you, by the green rear spoiler on that race car. You see J.D. Laird has one. Bill Edwards has one here. That indicates a playoff driver, but the green flag is in the air tonight, and we are racing in the Dunay Jewelers 200. Through turn number 1, John Cannizzaro gets out in front of James Lorello, and he'll want to cover off that higher lane because typically that is where the speed is on the longer run here at Bristol. It tends to be easier to defend a position in the high lane than the low line. But when you're running by yourself, drivers right now seem to be favoring in that lower lane. The battle a little bit further back in the pack. For the 8th position, Philip Scott held off Bronson Stafford for that one. Excuse me, Philip got around Bronson Stafford. Also, Bob Giaquinto getting around DJ Weeks over these first 4 laps. But so far, Will, things pretty tame here at Bristol. Single file for the most part. You see this battle for second on looking off the back of James Lorello's number 13 machine. Laird looking up the inside. But other than that, like I was saying, things pretty tame here in the early going.
Yes, which is good, and especially for the number 18 of John Carazano. This is exactly where he wants to be. Out in the front and setting the pace and getting a gap with the top 3 there in the front.
Yeah, John, all season long, he hasn't raced full time, but when he has shown very good short run pace. I'll be curious to see tonight if the Wild Child can keep it up over a longer run, which you probably will have to expect here at Bristol, with seeing the field get so stretched out already in the early going of this one. Stage break tonight, lap 45 of 200. We'll get a caution then re-rack all the field. Drivers get some fresh tires, and we'll go back racing again. Here's the battle for the lead starting to intensify. You see the 13 of James Lorello. He's caught up to Cannizzaro for the race lead. J.D. Laird follows right behind them in third. A little bit off of them is the 75 of Chuck Sweeting running in fourth. But just like we talked about John being able to get out front, set the pace, here is James Lorello right on his bumper challenging for this position.
Yeah, and it's got to be real careful there. He's going on the inside trying to get the cut in, and that's a real tough line to try to defend, but Cannizzaro keeps it on the outside, and he settles right back in.
You see James, he tried to dive it up the inside. I think that car got a little bit tight. Gonna make the look on the outside lane here, but John able to roll that inside lane and maintain that position. The key is probably, as the run goes on, not going to be letting that car behind you get into the outside lane. Obviously, John Cannizzaro thinks there's enough speed in the inside that he doesn't need to defend the high lane from from James Lorello. But as you see Chuck Sweeting now start to creep up into this battle, I think that 18 a little bit slower than these other guys want to be running right now, but you can be as fast as you want, but you've still got to complete the pass. And for now, John Cannizaro's not making that easy. A good run from Lorello out of turn 2. Again, looking off the back of John Cannizzaro. You see how much he gains through the corner. That's just that advantage of running up the inside lane. But as soon as James gets that run to the outside, he's got a lot more room to work with. He doesn't have to turn the wheel as much in the corner, and he should be rocketing off the straightaways. And there you saw John cover up the outside lane, trying to take it away from Lorello.
Indeed, they're probably quite happy, I would say, right now to sit behind him until we get closer to that stage break. Just kind of relax, get in the groove until you feel real confident you can pass here. And once James gets, like you say, gets that outside line, he's going to have it, and Cannizzaro's going to have a hard time getting it back.
And again, the stage coming up on lap 45. We're already coming to lap 18 here in this 200 lap event here tonight. These laps click by very fast at Bristol. You see JD Laird also trying to put a little bit of pressure on James Lorello in second. Not really able to do anything with that. There's Bill Edwards starting to creep up a little bit in 5th place. Out of these 4 running at the front, JD the only driver in the playoffs. So right now, I think he likes his position. He's going to pick up more stage points than anybody else. But still, you've got to remember his situation of being quite a ways back from your points leader, Philip Scott. I don't think he's looking to push the issue at this point, but I would expect maybe when we get closer to the end of this stage, we might see that 46 get a little more aggressive. Taking a look out at the chat as well, Johnny Williams saying good luck all and hello to the booth. Hello, Johnny. Glad to have you tuning in here tonight. Also, Will Radcliffe, my broadcast partner, saying hello. Hello, Will. Bob Giaquinto, definitely not me tonight. Might have been saying that about our poll, I'm not quite sure. And the Windsors saying good luck to Bill. You saw JD Laird there. He slipped up just a little, got passed by Chuck Sweeting in the 75. Oh, caution flag is in the air as well, just like that, Will. We're going to have to go to our World Racing Network replay, dial up this one. Oh, and I'm getting word this was a pretty big incident. We'll take a look and see. Here's the 23, Bob Giaquinto to the outside of DJ Weeks. Mike Tellier right behind him. Off of the corner, Giaquinto got a little bit tight into the wall. And there's nowhere for either of those two guys to go. And oh, Jason Schue got a piece of it there at the end. Garrett Gleason got through it all right there, but for those 4 drivers, that's a lot of damage early on in this race. Not what you wanted to see if you're one of those guys.
Exactly, and like we said earlier, if that might be a small crash in any other circuit, but here, that's going to really kick you down.
On board with Mike Tellier, you see Giaquinto gets the wall, and there's no time to react whatsoever. There comes Jason Schue, the little last-minute contact there. Again, that not ideal for any of those guys. They're all going to have hefty damage. And for Mike Tellier, he's the driver. Bob Giaquinto also. DJ Weeks too, actually. All 3 of those guys, except for Jason Schue, those are playoff drivers. So that is big for the rest of the playoff field too. Those are 3 guys you're racing with for the championship that just got major damage 25 laps into this race. Not even to a quarter race distance yet. You see the field, a little bit of a mixed bag here in terms of pit strategy. Your leaders stay out, John Cannizzaro, James Lorello, Chuck Sweeting, and JD Laird. But then pitting from 5th place is Bill Edwards. He's the first guy to come down pit road. He's not the only one either. Those drivers who got damaged on pit road, along with Garrett Gleason and Robert Tripp. So you've got a little bit of varying strategy here, but I mean, personally, what would you do, Will? Because you've only got about 15 laps to go in the stage once you go back green here. We don't exactly know either how the tire advantage is tonight. So are you pitting here or are you staying out on track?
I think if I'm way in the back, I would take the chance and pit, just in case maybe that slight tire advantage can get me somewhere. But if I'm up in the front, I think there's no point. You only have, like you said, 15 laps to go. Your tires are warm. You're in the groove. Just keep it going.
I agree with you here in this circumstance. I think there's enough time. The tires aren't going to be able to run back through the field, but we'll see. I've been wrong about strategy quite a bit this season, especially lately. This caution is going to give us a good chance, though, to talk about today's race sponsor, Dunay Jewelers. Again, a big thank you for them for coming on board and sponsoring tonight's race. Dunay Jewelers is located in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. They have been family-owned and operated since 1963. They have a large collection of jewelry, do repairs, and more. You can find out more about today's race sponsor, Dunay Jewelers, by giving them a call at 570-822-5511 or visit DunayJewelers.com. Got to get the plug in for tonight's race sponsor. We could not do that without all our sponsors here. They make TNR racing possible on a Monday night here on the World Racing Network. So a big thank you to them. And a big thank you to the pace car for turning off its lights. We are about to go back racing. John Cannizzaro taking the outside lane on this restart. Fires off very well. Lorello does not from second. Green flag is in the air. That allows J.D. Laird to slide up into second. And now Lorello going to have to do what he can to hold off Bronson Stafford for third.
Yeah, what a beautiful restart from Cannizzaro and a great jump from Laird. Now they're going to be, I think what we were talking about earlier, now this is Laird's chance to try and get that for the stage break. Because before they were kind of just running to keep on running, now we're nearly there. So this is his chance to go.
Yeah, and you saw him try and make the move there up the inside lane, but John Cannizzaro holding strong in the outside. And that is sometimes how Bristol tends to work here on iRacing. If you stick it up in that high line, especially once we've got 15 or 20 laps on tires, it is very difficult for that driver to work around you on the inside lane. So you'll see throughout the race, drivers start moving more and more into that outside lane to hold that position off. And eventually, that lane might become even faster than the inside once it gets a little bit more rubber in it. But right now, John Cannizzaro continues to run the inside lane as he paces the field over J.D. Laird in second, James Lorello in third. Bronson Stafford is in fourth in the 61, and Chuck Sweeting rounds out your top five. Bill Edwards on those fresh tires is right there on the bumper of Sweeting. Look at him move through the field. I wasn't sure if they had enough time. 10 laps to go in the stage almost, and Bill is starting to move his way up through the field. Meanwhile, your race leader under fire again from J.D. Laird and James Lorello. There's a nice pack of cars right here, all bumper to bumper.
Yeah, Bill Edwards not really knowing where to be down there. He's taking the inside lane, and he almost looks like he's able to get it, but doesn't quite have the pace being down there. And I think Cannizzaro's figured out whether it's tire wear or just the rhythm of the pack right now. The outside lane is not quite, is where he wants to be. But Bill Edwards is still taking down the bottom. He's past J.D. Laird now, sliding right up into second.
Yeah, that number 5 machine cooking on the fresh tires. Got a little bit loose out of turn 4, you saw there, but he is taking full advantage of that fresh Goodyear rubber up on the inside lane. And he is able to make that pass again because his tires 25 laps older. I don't know. He's been out 15 laps, but the tires themselves 25 laps newer than these guys behind him. And you see Bill Edwards now taking the lead of the stage. That critical because he is 11 points behind Philip Scott for the championship. Scott runs in 7th right now, but that would cut that lead pretty much in half that Philip has on the championship lead now. Granted, Bill has one less set of tires if we start getting cautions late in this race, but right now, short-term gain definitely for Bill Edwards. 5 laps to go in the stage now. Let's check in on the 55 of Steven Doziak here. Running in 10th place, we bring it to him because he holds an onboard camera here tonight. That is Steven Doziak, presented by Radcliffe Reviews. Will, I've got you in the booth. I asked you for a little read, but I said, why not? I have the Will Radcliffe in the booth. If you want to tell us a little bit about Radcliffe Reviews, tonight's presenting sponsor of the driver onboard camera.
Yeah, I don't know if the Will Radcliffe is the title I should hold, but yeah, Radcliffe Reviews is my endeavor I've gotten into lately. It is a website/social media gathering to talk about anything automotive, whether it's racing or car news or automotive history, whatever it is. I have all that on Radcliffe Reviews, and you can find it radcliffereviews.com or on my Instagram. And yeah, it's my passion, my automotive outlet at the moment, and I'm hoping to share my automotive passion and everybody else's there.
Like I've told you, I've been an avid reader of you so far. You just got the website up and going, and so far it's looking pretty good, much better than I could do coding it myself. So definitely go check out our friends at Radcliffe Reviews after tonight's race for everything automotive. Stage break. Caution flag in the air. Bill Edwards picks up the stage win here tonight. Well documented. Drove up through the field on those fresh tires. Pick up those stage points. John Cannizzaro finishes in 2nd. J.D. Laird in 3rd. Bronson Stafford 4th. James Lorello in 5th. Philip Scott is 6th. Chuck Sweeting is 7th. And Vincent Valvano, the 64, the last driver to pick up stage points here tonight. He finishes in 8th. Just missing out with Steven Doziak, our onboard camera here tonight. Tabletop Trio Lucky Dog Award under this caution. You see the number 3 of Jason Schue going around. He is going to get 1 lap back under this caution. Thanks to our friends at Tabletop Trio. You can check them out. Twitch.tv/Tabletop Trio. It's a fun podcast that talks about anything you can do on a table. Make sure to go check out Bob and the gang here. They put on a great show. Glad to have them as one of our partners here in TNR. You see Bob looks like he's going to take a wave around as well under this caution. So is Robert Tripp and DJ Weeks. They're going to get back on the lead lap as well. Everybody else, though, is down pit road. No surprise. 4 fresh tires and fuel, including Bill Edwards, which shouldn't surprise you because you saw only 25 laps on tires, yet he was able to completely drive through the field, Will. If you see that, you know if there's a caution and I've got tires, I probably want to take him the rest of the night.
Absolutely, and I think that Bill just wanted to prove us wrong.
Exactly that. We've had a lot of drivers proving me wrong this season, trust me. My ego has taken quite a hit in the second half of the season. I've been proven wrong on strategy many times. It goes to show you why I sit up here in the booth and am not one of the crew chiefs on top of the pit box. You see now, though, those lap down cars do come in, except for the number 9 machine of Johnny Williams. Johnny being scored as the race leader. He is not a lap down car. That 9 did not pit under this caution. He is now the leader of this race. He did come down and get fresh tires under that first yellow flag we had. But those tires are 25 laps old right now, so he is probably going to be in for it when we go green, and he's got all those fresh Goodyears starting behind him.
Absolutely, and I think that, like Cannizzaro, in the first we saw his tires, how much his tires and some of the others who hadn't taken tires in the caution, it affected them. So now I'm curious what Bill Edwards' strategy will be farther down the race, when he has one less. You know, him and anyone that pit in the caution, they have one less. And those on the straight stage break cautions, they might have a little bit of a jump ahead.
And speaking of John Cannizzaro, led most of the early stages of the race, but you see him there sitting in pit road. He's 2 laps down right now. Hope everything's all right with the wild child there. Been so fast here tonight. So far, no retirements from this race. Everyone's still in it. Mike Floppy Tellier just got back out on track. The green flag is in the air. The tire spin, though, from Johnny Williams up front. 3 wide through turns 1 and 2. Bill Edwards checks up out of it. That lets James Lorello shoot out into the race lead. The first time the Elizabeth Lorello racing machine has been on the point here tonight. Bill Edwards works around Johnny Williams for the 2nd position. Bronson Stafford also gets through. Good look for Bronson Stafford here tonight. This might be a new one with Matt Murr Designs on the hood. A great looking race car. Chuck Sweeting settles into 4th, and Philip Scott now in 5th. Johnny Williams continues to slide back a little bit through the field, and that's going to happen on older tires. When everybody's on 20-lap fresher tires than you're going to go for a little bit of a slip, and that's what we see right now from the 9 of Johnny Williams. Look at J.D. Laird, the aggressive 3-wide move. Vincent Valvano gets around him. Now he's going to try and pass Johnny Williams. Laird lost a little bit of track position under that pit cycle. He now runs in the 7th position. So not the greatest pit stop for J.D. Laird. He's going to look to rebound here as we get going. But again, Will, so far it's smooth sailing for all these drivers and mostly single filed out through the field.
It really is, and a common theme is 1 or 2 kind of shooting out into the front. And but I expect that as the tires wear back down, that pack will shrink. But for right now, James Lorello and Bill Edwards really enjoying some free land up there.
We got John out in the chat, John Cannizzaro, letting us know that Logitech will be Logitech and that full throttle is causing his brake to drag and the braking causes the throttle to drag. That is not good for the driver who's been running well tonight. John, we hope you get that all sorted out. And I'll sit here and thank my Thrustmaster wheel that it has yet to do things like that to me over the many years I've had it, but that is unfortunate. We hope that gets resolved and you're able to join us next week in Las Vegas for the finale. That means Cannizzaro, the only retirement here in tonight's race. He has officially taken that car to the garage. And James Lorello continues to lead, but once again, Bill Edwards starting to close up, and these drivers behind him as well, Bronson Stafford and Chuck Sweeting, they are closing this gap. And all of a sudden, Lorello is starting to feel a little bit of pressure from those guys behind him. This is a cool camera to look off the back of the race leader and see the drivers behind him. And you see as well how Lorello has now moved into a little bit more of an outside lane. He's running in the middle of the racetrack, and that is to prevent that 5 of Bill Edwards from jumping to his outside and working his way around James Lorello in that preferred groove in the outside. James, a very crafty race car driver, and I will point out that the 13 and the 5 are teammates. Lorello and Edwards both run for S2R. So we'll see how nice they play with each other, or if things get a little feisty on lap 65 of 200, so still a long way to go here in this one.
Yeah, and I definitely agree. Keep him out of that inside. As we saw before, Bill Edwards, he's a master of it. When he got down to the inside, and whether it was with new tires or not, that inside is very fast.
Yeah, no matter how new your tires are, it still takes some talent to go drive through the field. And Bill Edwards, second in the playoff standings right now. We know he's got a lot of skill behind the wheel. Has yet to win this season, too. That's been a big asterisk we've talked about with Bill Edwards. He's been in contention so many times this season, but has yet to put a win in the win column. Of course, that could be said for many of the drivers in the playoffs, but he's had a great performance in the opening 2 races of the season. Excuse me, in the playoffs. He also had a good regular season. But right now, he's sitting very good, too. Philip Scott in 5th. Bill picked up some stage points. This has got to be the run the 5 wanted coming into tonight, again, with the championship race looming on next Monday night.
Yes, and it's not the run that J.D. Laird wanted, having sat quite, in a happy 3rd before the stage break. Now he's sitting behind Philip Scott, the points leader. So he's the two of them probably going to be battling it out, but still there's a long way to go.
Yeah, JD running in 6th place right now. We saw him battling for the lead earlier on in this one. And again, JD's been a driver we've come to expect a lot of pace from, and that's why it's sometimes surprising to see off runs like he's been having through the playoffs here. And don't take me wrong, 6th place, a fantastic run. Right now, I think JD minding his pace, setting himself up for the long run, because we have seen all season long the J.D. Laird knows how to get one of these race cars into victory lane. The winningest driver this season, he's done it 5 times. And as he starts to work on Philip Scott, I only expect this 46 to get closer and closer to that race lead as this one goes on. This is a good battle on the racetrack. Taking a look through the field, if anybody else is doing battle, we also have the 64 Tonkin Giants machine of Vincent Valvano. He's going at it with Jamar Dumas, and the 97 of DJ Weeks is currently a lap down, sitting behind them. Where's Garrett Gleason? My broadcast partner, Garrett Gleason, running in the 10th position right now, a top 10 run for Garrett. He obviously, and I'm totally unbiased, has one of my favorite paint schemes on the racetrack. That was painted by our friends at Fatal Concepts. A big shout out to them for doing the World Racing Network scheme. And Garrett right now making me proud, putting it in the top 10 here. The fastest car on the racetrack right now is the 75 of Chuck Sweeting. He sits in 4th place right behind this cluster of cars. You see Bill Edwards fallen off of James Lorello now just a little bit. He's getting a lot of pressure from Bronson Stafford in 3rd. And this is a battle I don't think is going to settle down anytime soon, Will.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And with the tires falling off eventually, they may not be able to run the inside lane as aggressively. You can already see that Bill Edwards is falling back a tiny bit. And but still, they've got pace, and they're still way ahead from the rest of the field. Especially as Philip Scott is trying his best to get back onto that lead pack, but just not quite there.
Sweeting in 4th is a little bit over a second ahead of Philip Scott, who runs in the 5th position on the racetrack. You see Philip there. J.D. Laird behind him. Philip is now pulled back away from J.D. Laird, running in 6th place, so Philip solidifying himself in the top 5. But again, if you're Philip and you see Bill Edwards, the driver, at this point, you're battling for the championship, running ahead of you and knowing he beat you in the stage. How are you feeling if you're behind the wheel of this 99? I mean, obviously, a top 5 run is exactly what you want, and he's got good pace, but right now, it just seems like the 5's got a little bit of an edge on him.
I agree, and I think that, but obviously there's still a long way to go, and Phillips might just be playing the long game too, just like J.D. Laird is. He thinks, well, there's going to be another stage break, and eventually, we'll be back together. And when that happens, then I'll rocket ahead.
It is very possible, and we get very long runs here at Bristol too. You can go a long way on fuel. I don't know that they can quite make it to the end. I'm not sure what the fuel numbers are, but certainly they are already close to their window. And if at a track where you can go over 100 laps on fuel, you know that you're getting pretty good fuel mileage per lap out of this thing here tonight. And that goes to being just a half mile and being such high speed. Here's the 75 of Sweeting. Philip Scott now to the back bumper. Didn't even see him start to make up this time. But here is this second pack here, the lead pack with Lorello stretched out front. But Philip Scott has caught up and is now trying to pass. Sweeting might get there. I think Sweeting conceded the position through the corner. They caught lap traffic too. That didn't help, but right now, that 99, he is looking pretty fast all of a sudden. Making me kind of eat my words up here, Will. Heard me talking bad about him. It's like, okay, I got to start going now. Mitchell thinks that Bill's faster than me. And all of a sudden, here's Philip Scott. He's in fourth, and he's moving his way forward.
I'm sure it's absolutely 100% of that, Mitchell. They just like to prove you wrong.
And it's happened all season long, which is what I love about TNR. All these drivers are so talented. They know how to win races. Philip Scott has been into victory lane once this season. He knows how to get it done. And his win came at Indianapolis. On paper, that is a very different track from Bristol Motor Speedway, and it is. But I've always thought that road course racers, which Philip Scott is a very good road course racer, tend to perform better on short tracks as well. And that is another thing that Philip Scott has always, in the races I've broadcast, excelled on the short tracks. And we see him now challenging Bronson Stafford. That all just goes to the amount of brake and throttle control required to run a road course is very similar to what's required to get around a short track fast. And right now, Philip Scott has done a great job saving tires. He is all over Bronson Stafford for the third position. Stafford using every inch of that racetrack up by the wall. Philip working to the inside. Can he get the pass through 3 and 4? You see the 61 of Stafford just able to carry that momentum off the corner. That's exactly why drivers prefer that high line when they're defending their positions. It's just so much easier to wind that car up and get it out of the corner on the top than it is the bottom. We are almost halfway through this one. Got a great battle here. I think it's time to dial up our first WRN listen-in of the night. The battle continues between Philip Scott and Bronson Stafford for the third position. You're looking off the nose cam on Philip Scott's World Ninja League 99. You saw how quickly that Philip was able to catch up to this 61, but Will, as he's gotten closer, just not able to make that pass. You're riding off the back of him. You see Chuck Sweeting isn't going away either. That 75 has hung with him, and as they battle, he's going to start to inch a little bit closer. But right now, the 61, he's doing exactly what he needs to do, which is hold that high line. And it's kept him in front of Philip Scott, and now they are starting to reel in the 5 of Bill Edwards as well. So we could have a battle for second place on our hands very shortly.
Yeah, but whatever. I'm not sure what he's doing, but Lorello up in the front, maintaining a very big lead, and I guess traffic is slowing him down just a tad bit, but for a while there, Edwards was about 2 seconds behind.
James Lorello currently holds. Oh, that got tight off the corner. That was a perfect moment to cut to the rear bumper cam. James currently 2 seconds ahead of Bill Edwards, who runs in the second position. So that 13 is checked out with a pretty good lead here, as we are now past the halfway point in this race. Philip continues to dive to the inside, but again and again just does not have the drive off the corner to get around Bronson Stafford. he's almost going to have to find a way to get above that 61, and that is very difficult to do when you could run the wall and you can do it fast. There you see him try to slide up the outside, but got a little bit tight through the center. Stafford throttled it up and couldn't make it happen. But that is exactly what Philip needs to keep doing. You got to make him run right up on that wall, and if not, you have to slide right on by. And again, Philip charging to the outside, but Stafford not quite leaving him enough room to shoot through the gap. And that is exactly, at this point of the run, what you need to do. And that's frustrating, too, if you're Philip. He just has nowhere to go.
Absolutely, and now they're catching some lap traffic, and so that might give Phil Scott an opportunity to go on the inside. But still, at the moment, Bill Edwards is keeping it far up, and J.D. Laird, who was probably not quite happy with where he's at, is falling off of that pack, even Sweeting, and about 7 seconds or 8 seconds behind the leader.
Yeah, lap traffic too, that is really your other good chance if you're Philip Scott, but you see getting around Giaquinto, nothing able to happen there. Bronson Stafford able to maintain that position. We'll see if Jamar Dumas slows him up a little bit, but if he can get through him clean, there's a while before Philip's going to have another good chance to use the lap cars as a pick to kind of get around him. Really, if you're Philip Scott, you've got to get to the inside of that 61 and then hope the 28 is slow enough to hold him back. But that is probably not going to happen just because of how difficult it is to make this inside lane work. You see here the 28 of Jamar Dumas running very well on the outside lane. I thought Philip might go with him and hope that Dumas is able to take the position or maintain it. But instead, Stafford gets around on the inside. Philip almost made contact with Jamar Dumas. But we continue to race under green flag conditions. Only one caution here so far in today's race. Again, a lot of laps left here in the Dunay Jewelers 200. But as things go right now, these drivers seem to really be settled in. They're running their lines. They're putting down good, consistent laps. And as the field continues to spread out over this run, normally you would expect there to be a much smaller chance of a caution. But here at Bristol, you're constantly racing around lap cars or other drivers for position. There's no real spreading out of the pack because there's always someone around this short track.
And as a side note, in 13th place, we have Robert Tripp. He just took a trip down the pit lane, along with Garrett Gleason, who is still in the pits. But Robert Tripp, 4 laps down, I think kind of proving that the fuel window is getting close. And so there must be some advantage if you're farther back in the pack to go ahead and pit. See if you can make up some new tires or make up some fuel advantage and try to catch back up.
Yeah, why not pit and see if you can't make something happen with fresh tires here? Garrett Gleason still sitting in the pit road, though. I think there's something wrong with that number 7 machine. He's been down there for quite a while at this point. We'll see if anybody else decides to jump down pit road anytime soon. You see James Lorello, your race leader, working through lap traffic. They go to the inside and just let James around. Very courteous racing, as we've come to expect from all these drivers here in TNR. The racing has been fantastic all season long. Very respectful, very hard racing, but a lot of good green flag laps and great battles we've been treated to in this 2023 season. Still back in second place is Bill Edwards. He has pulled out about a second now over Bronson Stafford, who is still, surprise, surprise, being challenged by Philip Scott for the 3rd position. Chuck Sweeting has fallen off the back of these two now, though. He is several seconds behind Philip Scott. J.D. Laird about 3 seconds behind Sweeting. And again, Philip looking to the inside lane, but he's just struggling to make anything happen there on the inside. It's just too difficult right now with the tires as worn out as they are to get to the inside. And again, there is nothing more frustrating than knowing you might be faster than somebody but not being able to make it past just because the other groove isn't wanting to work.
Absolutely, and I, looking back at the front of the field, I'm not to be a biased commentator here, but I'm hoping that Lorello does take at least in the top 3, just so we can know what he's doing right, because he is keeping a very consistent 4 seconds ahead for everyone else, and just charging through the field.
One thing you see James doing here, everyone else is running on the outside lane, but he continues to run kind of in the middle low lane. That's not something I'm super used to seeing here at Bristol, but so far he's doing it to great effect. Has to run a little higher there because he was working around Mike Tellier. But you see James here, enters kind of in the middle, and then he's going to arc it off the corner, get down to a very late apex, and he gets off pretty straight, and that's helping him carry a lot of speed there on the straightaways, and again, a lower lane through 1 and 2. That's something we're not seeing anybody else in the field doing, but also everybody else in the field is having to deal with battles for position as the 61 of Bronson Stafford down pit road. JD Laird, Chuck Sweeting also down pit road, so your leaders have begun green flag pit stops. Mike Floppy Tellier is down into the pits as well. Bill Edwards now pits from second. Philip Scott still out on the racetrack. We'll see when your race leader, James Lorello, and now second place Philip Scott decide to come down pit road. Steven Doziak runs in third, 1 lap down currently, but he has yet to come make his pit stop. Vincent Valvano, Jamar Dumas, and DJ Weeks also have not been down pit road yet. Your leader, though, on his way down into the pits, James Lorello. That leaves just Philip Scott of your drivers on the lead lap, and the old strategy call is to stay out as long as you can and hope for a caution, and this is one of the better tracks to do that. But still, if Philip Scott decides to stay out here a little while longer, it's going to be a little bit of a risky play. You see how much faster, too, JD Laird is through the center of the corner. Look at how quickly that 46 drives away from Philip Scott. That's the advantage of new tires. But again, Philip staying out. If a caution comes out, the entire field is 1 lap down right now. Because as short as Bristol is, you lose 1 if not 2 laps when you come down pit road. So that would it would work out fantastic for Philip Scott, Will, because you would love to have the field stuck 2 laps down and be the only guy on the lead lap, or be one of 2 guys on the lead lap. But then again, he's giving up a lot of time by staying out on track.
Absolutely. It's a very big gamble he's taken, but I mean, where he is in the points right now, if he can take 4th or 5th, you know, and still be all right in good contention for the next race. So he might be thinking, it's like, well, yeah, I'm risking a lot right here, but I could win big, and he could win more than he could lose.
Also not down pit road yet is the 28 of Jamar Dumas. He remains on the racetrack, 1 lap down. Bob Giaquinto works his way around Philip Scott, getting 1 lap back. Giaquinto now only 3 laps down. Jamar Dumas is 1 lap down. Everybody else 2 laps down. Again, Dumas, the other driver who has yet to make a pit stop. Philip, and again, you see he loses all his time through the middle of the corner because he has to slow up so much more than everyone else to get that car to turn through the corner on old tires. There is James Lorello to put himself back 1 lap down. And again, if you're Philip Scott, you need a caution right about now because drivers starting to get their laps back. And if you come down pit road, you could be a lap down depending on how this works out just because you waited so long. There goes Philip, the 97 of Weeks on his way out of pit lane, but they negotiate it cleanly. And Philip Scott is into the pit road. As well as Jamar Dumas, that brings everyone down pit road and means James Lorello once again will retake the race lead once he completes 2 more circuits around this racetrack because he is still 1 lap down until right there he got around Philip Scott. So Lorello now back on the lead lap. But again, they'd have to crawl around this long pit road. It's only 35 miles an hour pit speed. It feels like you are just crawling around pit road here at Bristol.
Yeah, and for Philip Scott, whether or not this may have been his plan, we may not be as big-brained as him, but at this point, he probably is seeing that there was not a caution and that this plan didn't quite work how he wanted. So it's going to be a really long pit out for him.
We have seen through the season some drivers come back onto the racetrack with slightly newer tires and then just blow through the field with so much pace. There is Philip Scott still on the lead lap, just barely. You see it there. He could not have stayed out one more lap and maintained his position on the lead lap. And now he'll probably drive away from Lorello a little bit. These slightly fresher tires, about 10 lap fresher than James Lorello. But the thing about the strategy here at Bristol is that it is so difficult to pass. At most tracks, we've seen this strategy play out where drivers wait about 10 or 15 laps to pit and then come back out on fresher tires, and they just have so much more pace. I don't know that that's going to work here at Bristol just because of how difficult it's been to pass and how really that outside lane has been dominant. And if someone is in the outside, well, they can pretty much hold the position as long as they don't drive up into the wall. So we'll see how this works for Philip, but I am worried that he's not going to be able to make the passes like he might want to. Right now, he's 8 seconds behind Chuck Sweeting in 5th.
I agree with that, and I just want to take a slight moment to appreciate his car's, ending run out just in front of the leader just then. For going back to my childhood, I appreciate that, Philip. Thank you.
Yeah, he could not have cut that any closer. I mean, James Lorello was practically touching the rear bumper of the World Ninja League 99. But Philip, that was very critical, stays on the lead lap, doesn't have to get back around James. And now he will set his sights on trying to catch up to Chuck Sweeting in 5th. His championship competitor, Bill Edwards, runs in 3rd right now, 5 seconds behind your race leader, and 3 seconds behind Ronson Stafford in 2nd. And Bill, again, this has been about as good a day as it's been if you're not going to win the race. He's been in the top 5 all race long, been in the top 3 pretty much for most of the last 100 laps, and now Bronson Stafford got around him in the pit cycle, but still, you've got to love being in 3rd. And look at who's in 4th. It's J.D. Laird, the driver who we kind of said was struggling and stuck back in the pack. He's worked his way into 4th and just a second behind Bill Edwards for that 3rd position. So don't count out J.D. Laird yet, especially if we get some late race cautions or even one caution here that bunches the field back up. 50 laps sounds like a long time here, but really it's going to fly by. And so one caution, all of a sudden you have a little bit of a dash to the finish.
Indeed, and you think that out of that whole pit cycle there, Bronson Stafford was probably the biggest winner, going from about 4th and quite a ways off of Lorello. Now he's only 2 seconds behind Lorello, and Lorello doesn't quite have exactly the same pace he did before all of that, but that's not surprising on new tires. So now the two of them are off on the front and can enjoy that open area.
The 7 of Garrett Gleason continues to sit in the pit lane, not out of this race, but not in the race at the moment. We'll keep our eyes peeled for any updates on that 7. 3 drivers have officially retired from the race: Robert Tripp, Johnny Williams, and John Cannizzaro, who had a little bit of a wheel failure earlier in this race. Cannizzaro was so fast in the early going. But it's going to be 17th of 17 in the end for him tonight, not the result he wanted. James Lorello is 2 seconds in front of Bronson Stafford now, who runs in 2nd place. The Windsors say not to be talking about cautions. That wouldn't be good for Bill here running in 3rd. Again, having a fantastic run here. I think Bill and James in the race lead, the S2R drivers, would be the only ones who don't want a caution here in this one. Because if you're Bronson Stafford, I don't think you'd mind bunching it back up and trying to pass Lorello. You're not running for playoff points. Might as well give it a shot. But if you're Bill Edwards, you got a good lead over Philip Scott in playoff points. You don't want to see a caution come out here tonight. But if you were anybody else in this field, you wouldn't mind that yellow flag waving. But they only have 43 laps left to go. And that'll be only about 11 minutes here at Bristol. That is not long at all. And right now, James Lorello, he is just clicking off laps left and right. But again, I'll go back to last week at Darlington. It looked as though Tristan Maher had the race signed, sealed, delivered. But with 2 laps to go, a caution flag comes out. And all of a sudden, Maher goes from leading the race to then in overtime, he struggles, ends up getting involved in some incidents, and comes out of that race not finishing even in the top 5, I don't believe. He finished in 6th. So we saw last week how quickly a race can look like it's locked up to all of a sudden you're out of the top 5. And that is what James Lorello will hope to avoid this week.
Absolutely. And I think that given what we've seen so far, if there is a caution, and depending on who goes in where, I think that'll verify or solidify who wins. You know, because if, say, there is a caution and Phil Scott and Laird get in before Edwards and Lorello, well, that's 1 lap fresher tires, you know, and that'll make a big difference in who has speed at the very end.
Okay, the Windsors are telling us to stop talking about cautions again, Will, so we'd better do it. We don't want to upset our chat here on the World Racing Network. We will stop talking about it now, I promise. And we'll take a look again at Chuck Sweeting, who runs in 4th place. About a second behind him is J.D. Laird. Laird running in 5th. Having a pretty good going of things here. Got himself back up into the top 5. Let's check on Steven Doziak. We've got the onboard camera with Doze here tonight, thanks to our friends at Radcliffe Reviews. Steven Doziak currently running in 7th place, the first and only driver 1 lap down. So were we to get the thing I can't talk about because I'll make the Windsors mad, he would get the Tabletop Trio Lucky Dog Award. But that's not going to happen because we are not going to have any more cautions. I'm knocking on wood here. I'm doing everything I can to make up for it. And now James Lorello, looking at the gap, he is starting to really expand it over Bronson Stafford. 4.5 seconds is the race lead. That's up quite a bit. That 13, he's got great long run pace tonight, and that's really what separated James from the rest of the field.
Indeed, he's still managing to take that lower midline, like you mentioned earlier, and with whether that's on tires or just straight skill, and I'd say it's on straight skill, but that's keeping way ahead from everybody else.
Taking a look through the field, see where your favorite drivers are running here tonight. The 13 of James Lorello currently sits in the 1st position. The 61 of Bronson Stafford runs in 2nd place. Bill Edwards is in 3rd, your first playoff driver here tonight. Chuck Sweeting runs in 4th. J.D. Laird in the 5th position. Philip Scott in 6th. Those are the only drivers on the lead lap. Only 6 cars through 172 laps on the lead lap. 1 lap down is the 55 of Steven Doziak Jr., now 2 laps down, actually. Just got put 2 down. Vincent Valvano runs in 8th in the Talkin' Giants machine. Jamar Dumas runs in 9th, and Bob Giaquinto rounds out your top 10. Then in 11th, it's DJ Weeks. 12th, Jason Schue, who's got quite the beat-up race car. Tonight has not been friendly to that number 3 machine, but he's still out on track, and it's holding together enough to keep him in the race. Mike Tellier runs in 13th. He is the last driver left on the track. The other 4 we talked about, Tripp, Gleason, Williams, and Cannizzaro, out of this race.
And to jump in here, Mitchell, the 99 of Philip Scott has just flown by J.D. Laird further back in the field. Philip Scott has made up 2.3 seconds since coming back out in that spectacular fashion, and he's storming ahead. And so whatever he's got over J.D. Laird, now J.D. Laird's falling a bit back.
We're going to go watch this pass back here on the World Racing Network replay. You see Philip gets a good run out of turn 4 and able to carry enough speed through the center of the corner to make that pass on the inside. Big kudos to him. We have not seen many passes in the inside lane here tonight, so good job by Philip working around J.D. Laird, putting himself now back into the top 5. That good for those Philip Scott fans. Means that's 1 position fewer. That's 1 more point back to him were the race to end now. Again, as they run currently, I believe he will still come out of Bristol being your points leader, assuming that nothing changes, which it very well could between now and the end of this race in 22 laps. He will, I believe, hold, just by my guess of him guessing, about 3 or 4 point lead over Bill Edwards, which is not very comfortable headed into a championship race. And one thing is for sure, you are going to want to tune back in next Monday night when we crown the 2023 champion. I heard excitement. It sounded like someone got into the wall somewhere, but we stay green. Wherever that little bit of sound came from, that's cleared itself back up. Battle now for the 4th position. Philip Scott starting to close in on the back bumper of Chuck Sweeting. You see Philip inching closer and closer, and Philip, I do remind you, has slightly newer tires than these drivers, about 10 laps fresher. Going to try the inside of Chuck Sweeting, and he's going to clear the pass. Again, I continue to be impressed by the speed that slightly fresher tires have. I expected that they would be close enough on speed that you hold that outside lane. You were able to maintain the position, but right now Philip Scott through to 4th, and he's going to set that sights on the next driver in front of him. That is Bill Edwards in the number 5, his championship rival.
So I guess that pit strategy we mentioned earlier was a big gamble. Maybe this is what he wanted, that now he's coming out with just a few laps fresher tires and is able to kind of pull himself back.
Well, it's already been a gain for Philip Scott. I'm pretty sure he's now running better than he was before, if not about the same. And he's closing in quickly, too.
Yes. Sorry, Mitchell.
No, you're good. Yeah. So, all in all, it's been a gain for Philip Scott, this strategy, and he's not done yet. He is, again, going to try and run down the 5 of Bill Edwards here, who runs in 3rd position. That would be big for the championship points. He only has 14 laps left to do it, though, so things are going to heat up here pretty quickly. And again, I say 14 laps. It sounds like a decent amount, but that is only about 4 minutes that we have left in this race. It is going to fly by quickly. But you see the 99, he is getting close to the back bumper of Bill Edwards.
And I think the two of them might, just maybe, with enough time, pass Stafford, because he's losing about 2.2 or 0.3 seconds a lap. He's fallen back quite a bit from Lorello, and those two are charging ahead. So they might even take a 2nd and 3rd in this race, let alone the championship.
That would certainly make things interesting. Philip Scott up into the wall through turns 1 and 2. He is pushing really hard in that 99 machine. He knows what's at stake here with this pass on Bill Edwards. And you're right, too. Bronson Stafford only a 2nd in front of these two. They could potentially reel him back in. But I think right now, Bill Edwards is more focused on that car behind him than the car in front of him. This is the battle for 3rd place. James Lorello is checked out to a 7-second lead. This the only battle we have on track at the moment so far as scoring is showing me. Between Bill Edwards, who jumps to the inside line there. A little bit of a surprising move through 3 and 4. Leaves the top open for Scott, but he can't get the position. That was a little bit of a surprising move, Will. We've seen how dominant the outside has been, but he took away the inside from Phillip. And again, kind of left the door open, but able to get enough throttle into it. Able to stay in front of Phillip Scott. This is a great battle, and now lap traffic involved Jamar Dumas. He's going to check up, get out of the way of these two. This is going to be an intense battle to the finish. 6 laps to go as they cross the line.
And a little bump there between the 99 and number 5 set. Phillip Scott back just a tad. So now he's got some running back to do. But still, Stafford is not that far ahead, less than a second from Bill Edwards. So whether Bill Edwards can fight off Phillip Scott or not, they might be looking even more towards, well, championship. They'll be okay, so now they can go for the race win. Well, not the win, but second place.
Phillip came so close to getting to the outside of the 5, but Bill is just able to throttle it up on exit slightly better, and that is holding back the 99 of Phillip Scott. And the longer Phillip runs behind him here as he's to the outside there, can he hold it? No! Bill slides up. That was a nice move, but the 99 now crosses back to the inside lane through 3 and 4. Coming to 3 laps to go, Bill able to maintain the speed in the outside lane. Definitely a shallower entry for Bill Edwards, and that has opened the door for Phillip Scott a couple times, but so far, he has not been able to pounce on it here. Coming to 2 laps to go. We're going to keep the cameras here. Again, James Lorello leads this race now by 8 seconds over Bronson Stafford in second. This the battle for third. Coming to the white flag, 1 to go. Bill all the way to the bottom, leaving the outside wide open for Phillip, but Phillip cannot get to it. Barney the flag man waves the white flag. 1 to go at Bristol. James Lorello crosses the line to win this race. Who will be second? Phillip slides it into the corner. They make contact. Phillip turns him in 3 and 4. And Phillip Scott will take the position. That is going to be one Bill Edwards might not be too happy about. But Phillip Scott slides into third. I was wondering if Phillip would do that. You see Bill giving him the bump. Bill not happy about that one. But Phillip Scott gets around Bill Edwards in the final corner to finish in third place. Let's go look at that on the replay. I mean, that is textbook. He dove it in there, slid it in there, made contact with him, and he's able to slide back around the inside lane. But, Will, that is going to be one of those controversial ones this season. It wasn't for the win, but again, the implications here in the playoff points, that is tough. You see, he dives it in, gets Bill all kinds of out of sorts, and then runs through to finish in third. But I go to it again. I don't fault Phillip Scott, because when you're at this point, you've been running for months, and now the championship is on the line, and you got to make moves like that sometimes.
Absolutely, and that's not what either driver wants. Of course, Phillip wants to be in third, but he doesn't want to win that way, and Edwards doesn't want to lose that way.
Yeah, certainly. You would have liked to have been able to pass him clean, but it wasn't going to happen. Bill had too much pace in that car. Phillip couldn't get around him, and there's the result. James Lorello, a dominant win in the Dunay Jewelers 200 here. He picks up quite a bit of laps led, and although he's not in the playoffs, that means he will pick up the Bridesmaid Challenge win here tonight and win an additional $5 for beating playoff drivers. So go back to the poll at the beginning of the race. The 28% of you in the chat who said you thought a non-playoff driver would win. Congratulations, you are the big winners here tonight, along with James Lorello, who is doing, well, he's done doing his celebration. We're watching on the replay, but we're going to go dial up our post-race interviews, get drivers here ready to be interviewed, and we'll be right back with you on the World Racing Network. back here on the World Racing Network, getting ready to start our post-race show. Gonna talk to your top 3 finishers here tonight, and it starts with a driver who had a little bit of a controversial finish here tonight. Philip Scott, take us through those final laps. We saw the move you made, and we kind of talked about it. You and Bill racing for the playoff points. What was going through your mind there in those closing laps that led up to that move?
Yeah, I want to give shout out to Bill. Obviously, I don't want to be incredibly aggressive, but like I actually um believe it or not, I kind of planned out that move in practice. If it push came to shove, I was trying to figure out how to get like dive it in enough but not like go straight up into someone, just be able to bump doors. It's just so hard to pass here, and I really wanted to, it's the championship. Didn't want to do anything dirty, and we're fighting for it, and I would expect the exact same thing from him.
Well, obviously in the end it works out for you. You pick up the 3rd place finish here tonight, and we'll see how the points sort themselves out after this race. Looking ahead though, in fact I actually have the points. You now lead by 6 points over Bill. Headed into next week at Vegas. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I've got to ask you first, we saw a little bit of a different strategy from you here tonight. You stayed out about 10 to 15 laps longer than all the other drivers on the lead lap you were racing with. And it seemed to give you quite a bit of speed there at the end. Was that something you anticipated when you pulled that strategy?
Oh yeah, the tires fell off a ton. Like if you saw after 25 laps, when Bill pit and won the stage, he pulled away from everyone, so I knew it was going to be a big advantage. I pulled into the pits, and my tires were my right front was at 37%. So, yeah, it's good I pit when I did, and I pit just to stay on the lead lap, like just long enough. So, and James was the last one to pit before me, so it would have been hard to get by him. So, yeah, I knew that I've seen the undercut work, before, or the overcut rather, work in other stuff like the NSRA trucks. I remember a couple, like last season, I remember there's a dude that pretty much got lapped and made up a whole lap's worth in like 20 laps. So yeah, tires mean a lot here. So yeah.
Well, again, tonight, a great result. This is probably exactly what you were hoping for here tonight. You're the highest finishing playoff driver. And looking ahead to next week's race at Las Vegas, where we will crown the 2023 TNR Grand National Series champion. How do you feel headed into Vegas? I know you've got to be nervous. I've been in your position before. How do you feel about Vegas, and how do you feel about the points position going in there?
Oh yeah, at this point, it's just me versus Bill pretty much. As long as we can, stay up near the front. It was just really tough today. I was nervous, super nervous, and I'm sure I'm going to be just as nervous, if not more, next week. Vegas is very interesting these, especially at night, because the open setup lets you go pretty much flat out at the start, but obviously you burn your tires up. But if it's a late restart or early start, like I could see people be aggressive. Something got to look out for.
We are looking forward to it. The entire season has built up to next week. Obviously, we are wishing you the best of luck, and we hope you put on a good show for us next week at Las Vegas. Before I let you go tonight, though, I'll turn the mic over to you and let you give any shout-outs you'd like to.
Yeah, of course. WorldNinjaLeague.org, of course. And just want to say, may the best win next week.
We are looking forward to the battle between you and Bill. As I've just seen, Garrett Gleason posted in Discord. He's calling next week's points battle Ninja Phil versus Grandpa Bill. That's kind of a funny little moniker Garrett Gleason has coined for us. And I do want to make a correction. They updated points. Philip Scott leads Bill Edwards by 9 points, not the 6 that we originally thought. So it will be 9 points. The difference between Philip Scott, your points leader, and Bill Edwards headed into the championship race next week. Now it's time to dial up Bronson Stafford, your second place finisher, and Will Radcliffe gonna take his first shot at a WRN post-race interview. Take it away, Will.
So I may not be Garrett Gleason at this, but hello, Bronson. How are you doing? How do you feel after this race?
All right, a little disappointed. Knocked the wall a couple too many times at the right front.
Well, that's all right. You ended up with a great second place finish, and you held it against the third and fourth who have been battling the whole time, Philip Scott and Bill Edwards. Did you feel pressure near to the end that they were gonna like get close, or did you feel pretty confident?
No, honestly, it was just kind of riding around on our own in second. I didn't really even notice until the lapped cars were no longer between us, and it was like 15 to go, and I was like, oh, they're like 1.5 back, and it was just don't hit the wall anymore.
Yeah, of course, and you did a good job at doing that. And so you said you're disappointed. Did you feel like you had pace on the Relo and could have had a chance at the win?
Yeah, honestly, the first run I was really, really good after 15, 20 laps. And I actually got by him on that longer run. And just after the stage caution, I got the wall like 2, 3 times off of four, just trying to push it too hard. And eventually I could see the right front got pushed up, and I just knew it was I was just too tight after 30 laps kind of thing. Like it just got too hot, and it just pushed a little too much from there. So I needed a yellow basically with anything under 30 to go, and I had a shot. But anything beyond that, it was. I think you could see it after green flag stops. I think I held like 1.5 or so till like 150ish, and then I just started to drop back really bad.
Yeah, sadly we did see that in the times, and but either way, it's still glad that you managed to get out on top in a second place. So next week we're going into Vegas. How do you feel about Vegas?
Uh, Vegas is a fun track. I haven't done too many races here. Like this is the most I've done in a season, kind of thing. I just kind of show up when I'm free, kind of thing. But Vegas is fun, so if I'm around, then I'll probably show up for it and come run. It's a good track usually for these cars.
Well, excited to see you there after such a dominant second place, and yeah, have a good evening. And I'll send it back to Mitchell if he has any questions for you.
Before we let you go, can't forget to give you a chance to give some shout outs too if you'd like to.
Oh yeah, Sky Motorsports showed up. We had some quick cars. Mike ran into some issue. I think it was the first caution with some guys, but he struggled around the track and finished the race at least. And Matt Muir on the race car does all the beautiful paint schemes. The Sailor Moon one that Mike runs, and the one that I run, and the others that Matthew Rodriguez and Robert Kenny and stuff would run, but they're still injured, so that's fun. But yeah, really just everything that goes on, and obviously TNR themselves. It's a fun place to run. I've never done green flag stops at Bristol before in a league, so this was a first. So that says something about the quality of racing.
Yes, good green flag race tonight. Again, thanks for stopping by and chatting with us, and look forward to seeing what you can do next week.
Yeah, thanks guys.
That was your second place finisher here tonight, Bronson Stafford, and I believe there's a little bit of confetti due up. Congratulations, Will. You just completed your first post-race interview here on the World Racing Network. How's it feel?
Oh, it feels fantastic. I'd like to thank the Academy and my mom, and everybody else. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I will tell you, I've been doing this for several years now, and still, in a 2-hour broadcast, the most stressful thing to me is the post-race interviews, just because it can be tough sometimes, because, normally we just sit here and talk amongst ourselves, but talking to drivers is a whole other ball game. But it's time to talk to the race winner here tonight, James Lorello. James, how does it feel back in victory lane? You got to be happy with the dominant performance here tonight.
Yeah, wow, I can't believe it. First time talking to you all in the booth in a while and getting a win. I think it's probably been almost a year. So it was good to get into victory lane, and Bristol's one of my favorite tracks.
Yeah, it's been a little while since we've gotten to talk here, and we were watching you out on the track. It just seemed all race long, once you got to the lead, you just had something figured out that no one else seemed to. What was it for you here at Bristol that kind of gave you that edge to pull away with the massive lead?
Yeah, I really love the long runs here at Bristol when you can get them. It's really fun because you can run the bottom in 1 and 2, and play around with 3 and 4 depending on how the tire wear is. So that's what we figured out. Is I was just saving tires a lot more, probably 10% better than the rest of the field. And it's just a blast to drive. I don't get bored when you're only running with 17 cars on the track. Just a really fun track to drive, and once you get in a rhythm, it comes easy.
Bristol's definitely one of the more difficult tracks on the schedule, but you made it look really easy for us here tonight. And being not in the playoffs is not always fun late in the season to not be running for the championship, but you picked up a good race win here tonight at a track you like, and you're going to pick up the Bridesmaid Challenge win as well. So I believe you'll be getting some money at some point for that, so congratulations on that too. You beat all the playoff guys. Next week is the series finale at Las Vegas. Got to move back to 1.5 miles. How do you feel about Vegas?
Yeah, Vegas is a cool track on the 1.5 miles. So there's a lot of guys with pace in here, so usually better on the long runs. I'm just hoping to help support Bill, my teammate, S2R, hoping to have Grandpa make a run of the championship. So see what we can do and how I can help him.
We're looking forward to it again. It's going to be a fantastic race next Monday night. Before we let you go celebrate more here, they'll give you a chance to give any shout-outs you'd like to.
Well, thanks to you for broadcasting the whole season. It's been fun listening and watching. Glad to finally be up here. And thanks to Garrett and the whole crew for putting on TNR and Schue's Lawn for sponsoring this year. Excited to hopefully run full-time again next season. Hopefully I'll have some more time to do it. So thanks, everybody.
That is tonight's race winner, James Lorello, driver of the number 13 machine. Good to see James get back into victory lane here in TNR. Like he said, it had been a little bit since I'd gotten to talk to him. I believe former champion in the series as well. James Lorello has had a lot of success in his iRacing career. We went toe-to-toe several seasons ago in the NSRA, me and James. It was pretty fun times battling for a lot of race wins, and again, good to see him get into victory lane here tonight. That about does it here for our post-race show. I'll take you through tonight's finishing order of the Dunay Jewelers 200. Again, James Lorello picks up the race win, Bronson Stafford in second. Philip Scott picks up third after moving Bill Edwards in the final corner. Edwards finishes in fourth. Chuck Sweeting rounds out your top five. Then it's J.D. Laird in sixth. Stephen Doziak Jr. in seventh. Vincent Valvano runs in eighth. Jamar Dumas in ninth. And Bob Giaquinto rounds out your top 10. This is an interesting camera I've never seen before. I don't think it was showing us this weird behind Bristol camera in the pre-race. That's an interesting break before leading into DJ Weeks finishing in the 11th position. Jason Schue in 12th. Mike Floppy Tellier finishes 27 laps down in 13th. And then your DNFs in tonight's race. Robert Tripp 14th. Garrett Gleason 15th. Johnny Williams in 16th. And John Cannizzaro, your pole sitter, finishes in 17th. And that is about all for tonight, Will. It was a great race. James Lorello dominates. The big storyline coming out of tonight, obviously, is that move between Philip Scott and Bill Edwards in the final laps that allowed Philip to finish in front of his championship rival, Bill Edwards. And it's going to set up a great finish next week. And my one takeaway from that is that Philip moved him tonight. And so the code of conduct as a racer, if you move somebody, that gives somebody permission to move you. So I think next week could be very interesting, especially between those two.
Absolutely. Philip will hope he stays very far away from Bill Edwards next week.
Yeah, as our colleague Garrett Gleason has already deemed it, next Monday night, Ninja Phil versus Grandpa Bill for the 2023 TNR Grand National Series Championship presented by Schue Lawn Service. It always gets exciting when it's championship time, Will, because months and months of racing and working at getting as many points as you can, it's all going to come down to one race, and that will be next Monday night on the World Racing Network. That about does us for tonight. Do you have any more closing thoughts here, Will, before we go off the air tonight?
No, I just want to agree with you. It was a fantastic race, and I was very happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, again, thank you for filling in for Garrett Gleason, who did some driver duty here tonight at Bristol. Always a pleasure to have you up in the booth with me. And again, that does it for our broadcast here tonight. Want to thank all the series sponsors who make this possible. Schue Lawn Service, Tabletop Trio, who unfortunately has not been giving away many Lucky Dog awards because we've just had so much clean green flag racing. And Stay Tuned Sports. Those are our series sponsors. Also want to thank Dunay Jewelers, the title sponsor of tonight's race, the Dunay Jewelers 200 at Bristol. And again, a big thank you to my broadcast partner tonight, Will Radcliffe. Go check out Radcliffe Reviews. Give him a follow over on Instagram. It's definitely worth your time. And that does us. For all of us at the World Racing Network, my broadcast partner, Will Radcliffe, myself, Mitchell Adams, we want to thank you for tuning in tonight, and we look forward to seeing you next Monday night for the final race of the 2023 season, where we will crown the champion. Until then, stay safe, have fun, and we'll see you next time.